Hello, everybody, and welcome to another playoff series preview here at the Hockey Writers YouTube channel. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and I am joined in by two writers here at the Hockey Writers. Ben Fisher covers the Golden Knights, and Jacob Strozyk going to step in for the Dallas Stars here. This is a matchup I don't think anyone anticipated coming into this season because everyone thought that the Golden Knights, defending Stanley Cup champions, would be finishing higher than the final wildcard spot in the West. And the Dallas Stars, I think everyone anticipated them to be a good team this year. So I think it's just the fact that the Golden Knights are here against the Stars to start. So Ben, how's it going?
Yeah, well, you bang on. I mean, hey, the Stars held serve. If anything, they were didn't expect 113 points out of them, maybe, but no, I mean, the Golden Knights. It's funny. Started with points in their first 12 games, and everything looked like they had just steamrolled through any Stanley Cup hangover and were ready to go. And it was just as soon as they put together a few wins, it felt like there were a few losses just right around the corner. I think they lost three or more, five different times this year. So whether it was injuries, whether it was a little fatigue, um, obviously there were a few moving parts changing in and out, but this isn't exactly where we expected to find ourselves. No.
Yeah, it is an interesting way. I mean, they did made their moves at the deadline again, bringing in a big star, Thomas Hertl coming in. He's looks like he's fit in pretty well into the lineup since he's come back from the injury. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. And Jacob, how's it going? I mean, you're in now for another, but thanks for covering the Stars.
Yeah, I'm here to cover all the teams you need because I just like hockey and I like talking about it. Playoffs is a fun time for me, despite the fact that my usual Buffalo Sabres don't really make it. So this is still fun for me to get to talk about it. So no, I like the Stars. I've followed them. I mean, casually. My brother is also a huge fan of them, so I get plenty of Stars info from him throughout the regular season. So I still feel like I'm up to date on it. I'm excited about their playoff run. I don't think I had them this high at the start of the season, but I'm not exactly complaining. They got a lot of players I like, and I think it's going to be a good series.
Should be good.
Jacob, when it comes to the Stars, I won't mention any skates and creases or anything like that.
Now that's just offensive, and we can fight about that in the parking lot afterwards.
All right. Well, going into this a little bit of primer of the regular season, the Golden Knights actually won the season series against the Dallas Stars, 3-0. But all three of the two of the games were before the new year. And then actually all three of them were actually. They were all before the calendar turned to 2024. Last one being a 6-1 win for the Golden Knights. The other two were close games, both overtime, one shootout. So, I mean, not really saying much on that. I mean, it's they were close games. So, I mean, only one real lopsided one. I'll start with you, Ben. You mentioned a little bit about what the Golden Knights gone through this season. Talk about how they've kind of gone through and how they played against the Dallas Stars. Do you feel that they have a little bit of upper hand, being that they didn't lose to them during the season?
Yeah, I mean, despite the fact that this season may not have met every expectation they had going in, I don't think there's a lack of confidence here, even though it is a 1-8 matchup effectively. I don't think that Vegas is certainly seeing it that way. I mean, you mentioned the regular season series, and it was really more that the 6-1 was an anomaly, but it was really more a continuation of the Western Final last year because you had a six-game series. Half of them went to overtime, and sure enough, here you had a shootout win for Vegas, and I think it was another OT win. So pretty tight games, apart from the 6-1, which I mean, given a regular season game in December, anything can happen.
Yeah.
But so I don't know how much stock you put into those three head-to-heads, especially as you mentioned, Matt, that they came quite a while ago now and long before the trade deadline overhaul. So I mean, I don't think that they have any reason to fear Dallas necessarily. And I think if the Golden Knights look at this as not necessarily playing up to potential and now being able to lock into postseason mode, then I think they're ready to
Mhm.
clean the slate and focus on the now rather than worry about the last 82.
They kind of stumbled at the end of the season too. They lost quite a few games coming in, and they did lose the last game of the season too to make this matchup, because if they would have won, they would have been able to get into the Pacific Division and play
Anaheim
the
too, yeah.
Oilers, and playing against the Ducks, which you'd think would be a win, but end of season, it happens against these teams. Jacob, over to you with the Dallas Stars. I mean, they had pretty much no weaknesses to their game. It seems like that they can do anything. They got great defense, great forward core, great depth throughout their lineup, and a mix of veterans, young guys. Wyatt Johnston had a great season. Real, younger guy and having over 30 goals. And then you got the ageless Joe Pavelski, who doesn't seem to. It seems like he's an android or something. He just keeps playing and he keeps putting up great seasons. So how did the Stars go through the season, and just playing Golden Knights in general there?
I mean, yeah, you hit the you hit the nail on the head there. The best thing about Dallas is their depth. Up and down the lineup, forward group, the decor, and even the goaltending. The goaltending was probably the weakest point for them this season, because Jake Ottinger is normally that all-star caliber goaltender, and he had those I'm going to say fairly average goaltending numbers compared to what standard he really sets for himself, but he does generally shine a lot more in the playoffs. So I don't think that they're going to have to worry too much about goaltending, even if it is against Vegas. Vegas also has that great depth up and down their lineup as well. So matchups is probably one of the toughest things to deal with in playoffs. So it's going to be interesting to see how, they kind of decide to deploy how the coaches decide to deploy their teams, and you can't erase the connection that the Stars have to the Golden Knights and their coaching and Peter DeBoer, who
Yeah.
used to coach them. So there's a lot of connections to be made. There's a lot of matchups that you could really work in and see what he gets creative with to give them the edge. And I think that does give them the edge. The fact that he knows a good portion of the roster and the scheme and how everything kind of goes for them. And the Stars have been consistent all year. They didn't really have too many, big losing low points. They were just floating and doing
Mhm.
extremely well throughout. So I don't think they have anything to necessarily worry about as far as their own gameplay. So focusing in on shutting down the Vegas All Stars, as well as getting to the scoreboard as quick as they can, I think is going to be
Mhm.
the biggest key for them in the series.
Yeah, I mean, 52 wins on the season, finished not that far off of winning the President's Trophy. They were close to the Rangers. They just had a great season overall. I mean, winning the West on the last day of the season, just getting that point, and then they did win that game too, so they would have got it regardless. Yeah, it's a great team and great teams actually. Like you said, they're going to be
Mhm.
playing some. I think it's going to be a tough series. All right. Ben, moving over to some players to watch. Who are you watching in this series specifically? I mean, we have the guys that are the stars on this team, but they also got some underrated guys that seem to, and that's where they kind of thrive. Last season was the same way. They had scoring throughout their lineup. Who are you watching in this series?
Yeah, I mean, well, Jacob mentioned the depth, and that certainly was solidified at the deadline. But Matt, you mentioned Thomas Hurdle off the outset here, and to me, he's really the big, I guess, the game changer here. Simply based on the fact that they're using him as the number two center, and he did look pretty good in the few games that we saw from him, but realistically, it's about 6 games at the end of the season. Like, I mean,
Hmm.
he hasn't had the chance to gel with everybody, with his line mates yet, and we haven't really seen the full effect of what he can do. And so, in that regard, there is a bit of an unknown that's tied to our top six, tied to the top of the lineup, and I think that there's a lot of potential there. I mean, we picked him up for a reason, and there's a lot of playmaking skill there. But we'll see. I mean, it can't be a work in progress come game one. It
Hmm.
has to be a bit more of a finished product. And so, if he can bring that to the table, then obviously that's a huge asset to have in the lineup. And if not, then I mean, they do have the depth to address it, and Bruce Cassidy can certainly line up shuffle if necessary. But against a good team like Dallas, it's going to be tough sledding if he's not on his game.
Mhm. And just a quickly, do you see Mark Stone entering this series at any point? I mean, he's been skating, but there's no real projection of if he's going to play.
I mean that non-contact jersey still seems to indicate that it's a bit of a ways away. But again, the as someone who's been following the Golden Knights, I've seen fans around the league roll their eyes more than once at our franchise, and I could definitely see that coming along once again in the next couple weeks here. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
He's going to return in these playoffs, that's for sure, unless they get swept or something weird, and then yeah, doesn't have time to come back. But we'll see. Jacob, over to the Stars. I mean, like we mentioned a few of the names there. Who are you watching? I mean, there's lots of guys that could potentially do stuff. I just want to mention one guy just before you may mention him, but Logan Stankoven, I think, could potentially be something in this series. He's a guy that just seems like could be a playoff guy. Who are you watching for the Stars?
Yeah, I'll touch on Stankoven real quick because he's a real fun player to watch, and he's been one of my favorite prospects to watch for the Stars over the past little while. So I love that when he broke into the NHL, he started producing right away, and he's really getting his footing. And I think that's going to be great for the Stars going into a playoff run. I'm sure I'll talk about him again, but I'll just touch on that quick. As far as players to watch in general, we talked about Pavelski, so I'll touch on him as well. He's a known playoff performer. He constantly produces goals. He constantly plays in clutch situations that can do just about everything you need for him. He plays center and wing. He can win draws. He does literally everything you could possibly imagine at a nice, ripe old age for the NHL. So he is 100% one of the players to watch, but on the flip side, as far as age goes, I want to hone in on Thomas Harley.
Mm.
I think he is going to be a massive impact player for the Stars in this playoff series. He had an outstanding regular season, and I really think he has the capacity to bring that into the playoffs and perform up to that same standard as a really good two-way defenseman.
Yeah, Thomas Harley was one of the more surprising guys this season for scoring. I mean, on the back end. So yeah, he's definitely a guy to watch. As for Joe Pavelski, I mean, I'm just looking at he's 39 years old. I'm turning 39 in October. So I mean, he's he's the same age as me, pretty much. Yeah, and he just plays. He's so durable too. He has so many 82 game seasons. He just doesn't miss games. He's never hurt, and he still puts up 20 plus goals every year and 60 plus points. I mean, the guy's just, it seems like I say, he seems like he's a robot or something. I don't know when he's going to retire.
Bionic. When someone finally takes him out, it seems like even back when he was with the Sharks, he got knocked down. I know it was a controversial hit in the way that everything happened. I know it was against the Golden Knights, but still, even that didn't keep him down and out.
Yeah.
He was ultimately, back up in the saddle and playing up to a great standard. So it's going to take, unless someone takes him out, I think that's the only way you're really knocking Pavelski out of a playoff series.
The same gritty style of play he came right back to too. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. 9 goals in the playoffs last year. He has 13 goal playoff seasons. He's got a 14 goal one. I mean, yeah, like you say, constant performer in the playoffs, even at his age he is. All right, Ben, now over to you on keys to victory. How are the Golden Knights going to beat the Stars this time around?
I mean, we've talked a lot about the depth of Dallas, and I think that it's imperative to Vegas to certainly match that. The back end, I found for as many major names as we have defensively, Petrangelo, Hannafin, Martinez, McNabb, Theodore, I don't think that it was a great defensive performance this year. Like
Mm.
goals allowed were sort of mid-tier in the middle of the league. And I just found that even though our back end was largely healthy. I know Alec Martinez was gone for a little while, but we did have most of our pieces, especially after Hannafin uh, came over from Calgary, and it just for whatever reason, I feel like we were letting in more than I would have expected. And part of that is Aiden Hill had an on and off season in net. And so I think to go back to your question about keys to victory, that obviously things tighten up quite a bit in the playoffs, and the Golden Knights, they responded to that as well as you can last year,
Mhm.
and it paid off for them. And I think we need to get right back to that. And whether that's between the pipes or whether that's on the blue line, then I think there has to be a little bit more of a defensive-minded focus.
Mhm. And that's how they won the Stanley Cup, right? They played a really good defensive system and kind of frustrated teams throughout. And yeah, they got to get back to that. I don't think, like you said, wasn't really prominent throughout the season, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely Jacob. What about the Stars? Keys to victory for them. Like I say, they've got a lot of depth. They got seemingly have no weaknesses, but what do they need to do to get through the Golden Knights?
I really think it's as simple as keeping up with their consistency. They have scoring up and down their lineup. They didn't have any 40 goal scorers, but they had a bunch of guys with 20 or more goals on
Mm,
their roster. I think there was like 7 or 8 of them at one point, and their top goal scorer was Wyatt Johnston at 32. So there's depth, and there was consistency in the scoring up and down that lineup. And in the playoffs, that matters a lot more than
mhm.
relying on just your first and second line for your primary scoring. They still got plenty out of line 3 and line 4, and that is going to be massive for them. So consistency and continuing to use aggregate scoring as opposed to just all-star scoring.
Yeah, that's definitely looking at a guy like Logan Stankoven who had such a great start to his career there, and he could be someone that adds to that too. So at the bottom of the lineup, third, fourth line. So it is going to be a big thing, I think, for both teams, the depth scoring coming to play. So and same thing with the defense. Both defenses can add to the offense as well. So yeah, definitely something to watch there for keys to victory. All right. Well, speaking of Stankoven, he could enter this conversation. Jacob, an X factor in this series doesn't have to be a player. It could be something else. But what do you got as an X factor?
Uh, I would put Stanko possibly in that conversation just as like maybe like a wild card dark horse
Mhm.
type of thing, but I'm not sure if he's the outright X factor that would be game changing for the Stars in this type of a series. Instead, for me, it's goaltending. It's going to
Mhm.
rely heavily on can Jake Ottinger really get back to his playoff form and not what he was doing this regular season where he was looking a little shaky and kind of inconsistent amongst a team of very consistent players. So bringing him back up to speed, up to the level of performance that people are expecting out of him, I think really would be the X factor in shutting down the Vegas offense and maintaining the outstanding level of defense that the Stars are capable of pulling off.
Yeah, that's a good one. Onger wasn't consistently really good throughout the season, but you know what he can do in the playoffs. It seems he can step up his game. So I don't know if there's a worry there, but yeah, definitely a question mark. Ben, what about the Golden Knights for an X factor?
Um, I'm gonna, well, I'm gonna say with a caveat here, I'm gonna go with the top line. Now, in the playoffs last year, you had Jack Eichel, Jonathan Marchessault, and Ivan Barbashev, who sort of captured lightning in a bottle. They were just absolutely dominant as a number one line and piled up the points. Of course, Marchessault went on to the Conn Smythe, and but I mean really all three of them put together pretty good resumes for that. And they haven't been, I say the caveat because they haven't been playing together as much. Cassidy's been mixing it up a little
Mhm.
bit. But I mean, Marchessault has been sort of a consistent threat all season. Eichel, when he's been healthy, he's been fairly solid. It's been Barbashev who started off pretty slowly. He seems to have come on over the last 20 games or so. And I mean, I don't know if you can necessarily expect the same kind of production out of them. I'm not sure if that's fair, but if you can have just sort of some some pretty dangerous offensive threats at the top of the lineup, and again to start to maybe challenge Ottinger a little bit, as you mentioned, then I think that's the type of spark that can really get the entire lineup going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that top line was probably their MVP, like all three of them throughout the playoffs. And they haven't been as dominant this season. Like you said, haven't been together all the time. So, but Eichel's had a great season. He's coming in with some confidence, I think. So yeah, they could reignite it. We'll see. All right. Well, speaking of of MVPs, I'll stay with you, Ben. Who do you see as the biggest difference maker or series MVP for this one?
Um, I'll go back to the net. I mean, Aiden Hill again. You talk about lightning in a bottle last spring. He came on in the second round, I think. He came on for actually Laurent Brossoit, uh, and he really wasn't the number one option in net, but he just turned it on right away and became sort of something of an unlikely hero
Mm-hmm.
for the Golden Knights. And of course, that helped land him a nice, cushy 2-year contract, get the number one job. So it sort of helped carry him through the rest of the way. And we're we're almost back where we were at this time last year. He was shaky. Where I mean, um, you've got Logan Thompson right there as a viable. I mean, had been a number two, now might even be a 1A. And so I don't think that Aiden Hill is quite as secure as it seemed early in the season. So if he can settle in early, if he can maybe even take a bit of an edge in the goaltending battle, then I think that would be a monumental difference for the Golden
Mm-hmm.
Knights and also a nice additional confidence builder in terms of making them feel a little more comfortable, making them feel a little more defensively secure.
They don't have three goalies this time, I guess. They had Jonathan Quick last year too in the
I
mix.
don't think
So
Yuri Patera is making his way into the series, but yeah.
yeah, right. We'll see. I don't know if they want to do that. They have to rely on that many goaltenders, but yeah, that's
They
something.
probably didn't want to last year either,
No,
but
they
it
definitely
worked.
did, just forced into it, right? All right, Jacob, who's series MVP for you for the Stars? I mean, probably easy one is Joe Pavelski because he probably will be, but who do you got?
Yeah, easy answer is probably Pavelski, Robertson. You can make an argument for maybe Hans or Johnston too.
Hmm.
But I'm gonna throw a bit of a maybe a slight curve here and say it's gonna be the captain, Jamie Benn.
Hmm.
I think he's gonna play hard. I think after everything that went down in the playoffs last season with him in Vegas, I think it's gonna be a very emotional series for him. So I think he's gonna jump at every opportunity to make a big play, and he's gonna step up and really continue to produce like he has all season. He had what was it? It was 21 goals, 60 points in 82 games, and that's one of his better seasons of as of late. And I think he's gonna carry that over, and I really think it's gonna make a huge difference by the end of the series. So I'm gonna go with Jamie Benn.
Yeah, and you can't remember it's Tyler Sagan's in there that in there too. They got so much depth. They got these guys in the
Yep,
lower end of the lineup, and I'm forgetting about
and Matt
Sagan too.
Duchene.
Matt Duchene. Yeah, we haven't mentioned his name either. They
There's
got
a
so many
lot.
guys. They got a lot of guys. All right. Bold prediction now. You got there's probably some nice ones here. Jacob, I'll start with you. A bold prediction for this series.
Bold prediction: Stankoven scores, I'm going to say 8 goals and finishes with another, we'll say a total of 12 points by the end of the series. I think he lights it up.
Oh, I was my first thought was a prediction involving Stankoven. So he's one of my favorite players. So
Same.
if you
So
watch
we're gonna ride the hype train.
if you watch Prospect Corner during his draft year, and I hyped him up quite a bit. So all right, Ben. What about you? A bold prediction?
All right. Jacob sort of set the tone here with specific numbers too, and so see what I've got. I mean, I'm gonna go with the guy we haven't talked about yet, Chandler Stevenson for Vegas. He's had mostly a bit of a disappointing year. I mean, he's going into a contract year, so he's looking to sort of send a message and to get his name out there. And it hasn't gone well for him to this point. He's quietly come on in the last little while, and he seems to be gaining a bit of a spark on the hurdle line. And I think that he's a guy that uh, can really has the potential to rise to the occasion. And so, in that sense, I'm going to say that as a bit of an unexpected producer, I'll uh, I'll put him down. I won't be quite as bold as Jacob here, but I'll put him down for 5 goals in the series and a bit of an eye-opening player that you may not necessarily be counting on right now.
He's been an underrated player all the time in Vegas. I mean, he seems to jump into that top line center role, and was like, he's not really a top line center, but he seems to be able to do it. So
He's still making
yeah,
about 2.5 million, 2.75, I think. So he's not being not being paid that way yet, but
no,
we'll
he
see.
will. He definitely will. His next contract's going to be, I think, more in line for what he is. All right, let's get to our predictions for this series. Who's going to win it? And Ben, I'll start with you. Who's winning this series and how many games?
You know what? I mean, not to do any backstabbing here, but quite frankly, I've watched a lot of this Golden Knights team, and even in spite of their trade deadline splashes, they haven't looked quite right. And so I'm going to say that that the Stars, who have just again, we mentioned the lack of weaknesses and just been a bit of a machine this year. I think they roll through a pretty tough test, and I'm going to say 6 games here.
Right, Jacob, but what about you? What do you got?
I think between the depth and the potential for how good the goaltending can be, I think it's going to be an all-out absolute war, and it's going to go 7 games. And I
Mm.
think the Stars will finish it off. I'll even throw in a double overtime game 7 winner.
Ooh,
Oh,
you got a
I
game 7 hero?
Uh, Screw it, make it Stankoven. Drops that 8th goal in double overtime.
I have a lot of expectations on this guy. A rookie, his first playoffs, and he's gonna
I
be
can't wait.
he's
I
gonna be a
can't wait to see
big
what he
part.
does.
I want to say I'm gonna say that the Stars coming out of this too. I agree with Ben there. With they just don't look the same, especially down the stretch here. They're backing into the playoffs. They're not at their best. So I'm gonna say it is gonna go 7 games though. This is gonna be a long series. Lots of overtime. I predict that too. So I like that long overtime prediction. So I'm gonna go one better. I'm gonna go with the triple overtime. This is gonna be a late night
I like
going
it.
in. So,
2
yeah,
a.m. game.
I don't know about the game 7, but it's going to be in the series. It'll be in the series at some point. So, but Stars in 7, and Stankoven's going to have a good series, and Pavelski, I think, is going to be a big part of it too. All right. Well, that's gonna be a fun series to watch. It was fun last year too,
Oh
in the
yeah.
Yeah.
Western Conference Final, but this time it's in the first round, and we'll see how it all goes. But thanks, Jacob. Thanks, Ben, for coming on the show, talking this series, previewing it. Make sure checking out all of Ben's stuff on this series. I don't know if Jacob is going to dabble in the Stars at all. We don't have any writers for the Stars, so maybe you may see him take on that. But yeah, it's going to be fun. But until our next preview video, we have whatever you're watching, there's a few out there. But take a look at all our preview videos at the YouTube channel. But until next time, we'll see you on another show on the Hockey Writers YouTube channel here.
All right. Thanks, guys.